The man who murdered 6 million Jews is sitting in a British interrogation room eating sandwiches. It's 11 p.m., May 23, 1945. 2 hours ago, Heinrich Himmler, Hitler's right hand, commander of the SS, architect of the Holocaust, walked up to British soldiers and said, quote, "I am Heinrich Himmler." Now he's half naked, wrapped in an army blanket, drinking hot tea. Cooperative. Chatty. Talking about his intelligence value, the secrets he can trade, the months of interrogation ahead. In 30 minutes, he'll be dead. The British will say he bit down on a cyanide capsule hidden in his mouth. But here's what they won't explain: how he ate thick sandwiches with a 35 by 9mm glass capsule in his mouth. Why the dental report shows no glass fragments. Why his teeth, all documented as perfect on May 25th, are missing when they exhume him 8 months later. Why his brain, removed and sent to London, quote, to discover the source of his evil, has vanished from every hospital, every university, every institution in Britain. 2 days before Himmler died in that room, another SS general died there. Same room. Same story. Swallowed poison despite being thoroughly searched. Colonel Michael Murphy was in charge both times. When Soviet investigators demanded answers, Murphy claimed he was, quote, too hungover to meet them. For 72 hours straight. When American officers arrived with Himmler's brother and mistress to identify the body, Murphy had already buried it in an unmarked grave. Before sunrise. Britain sealed the files until 2045. 100 years. Everyone involved will be safely dead. But the evidence remains. Contemporary newspapers confirm the brain removal: the Daily News of Perth, the Second Army Troops News Journal, Time magazine, all reported it in 1945. Then, 80 years of silence. The teeth were there during the post-mortem. Colonel Brown's detailed chart shows every single tooth. 8 months later, when Dr. Ian Morris examines the exhumed body, most of the teeth are gone. Someone pulled them between death and burial. Why? Because teeth are as unique as fingerprints. The Soviets had Himmler's actual dental records from Berlin. They could have proven the identity or disproven it. The British made sure that comparison was impossible. Here's what makes this story matter in 2025. If Britain murdered their highest value Nazi prisoner to hide embarrassing secrets, what happened to everyone else who knew too much? What's in those files that's so dangerous it needs a century of silence? Sound familiar? Jeffrey Epstein died in custody. Cameras malfunctioned. Guards fell asleep. Autopsy raised questions. And we're told, trust the official story. Himmler's death was the blueprint. This is the complete investigation. The evidence they tried to destroy. The conspiracy hiding in plain sight for 80 years. We're going to follow the $50 million in gold he was chasing. Meet the witnesses who contradict the official story. Examine the post-mortem reports they don't want you to see. And answer the question, did Heinrich Himmler commit suicide, or was he silenced? Britain's darkest secret. Early 1945. Germany is dying. The Ardennes offensive in the west has failed. The massive Soviet winter offensive in the east is crushing Army Group Vistula. Allied bombers turned German cities into ash every night. Hitler retreats deeper into his bunker, believing his own propaganda while the Reich collapses around him. But one man still holds absolute power. Heinrich Himmler, Reichsführer SS, Chief of the German Police, Minister of the Interior. He commands 900,000 Waffen-SS soldiers, an army within the army. He controls the Gestapo, the Kripo, the Orpo. He runs the concentration camp system. He oversees the SD intelligence networks. He manages industrial enterprises using slave labor. The SS is a state within a state, and Himmler is its absolute ruler. Hitler addresses him with the informal "du," a privilege extended to almost no one else. Since 1929, Himmler has shown unconditional loyalty. He's the enforcer of Hitler's darkest visions, the architect of the final solution. If Hitler is the head of Nazi Germany, Himmler is the fist. But by January 1945, cracks are appearing. The German economy is collapsing under relentless Allied bombing. There aren't enough trained soldiers, not enough armoured vehicles, and, most critically, almost no fuel. The Waffen-SS and Wehrmacht are performing miracles trying to hold three fronts: West, East, and Italy. But the attrition is unsustainable. Hitler, increasingly isolated and physically deteriorating, refuses to see reality. He believes the war can still end favourably for Germany. Himmler sees the truth. Germany is finished. And then Hitler makes a catastrophic decision. He gives Himmler military field command. Winter 1944-45, the Vosges Mountains. Himmler's first assignment is stopping US and French troops advancing through eastern France. He has zero battlefield experience. He's an administrative genius, not a military tactician. Officers report he doesn't understand basic tactical concepts. The result? Disaster. January 1945, Army Group Vistula. The Soviet winter offensive smashes into Pomerania. Hitler appoints Himmler to hold the line. Himmler establishes headquarters in a special train. He refuses to visit the front lines. When pressed to make decisions, he freezes. Officers whisper, he's having a breakdown. His troops suffer massive casualties, while Himmler remains paralyzed by indecision. The physical toll is brutal. Severe stomach cramps from stress, blinding headaches, insomnia. He relies completely on Felix Kirsten, his massage therapist, to relieve the pain. Some days he's bedridden, unable to function. The man who runs the concentration camps with ruthless efficiency can't handle the chaos of actual combat. March 20th, 1945. Hitler personally relieves Himmler of command. The humiliation is public. Regular army generals, long under Himmler's suspicious surveillance after the July bomb plot, barely hide their schadenfreude. But Himmler keeps all his other positions: Reichsführer SS, Chief of Police, Minister of the Interior. He still controls the apparatus of terror. He's still the second most powerful man in Germany. But something fundamental has changed. For the first time, Hitler has publicly rebuked him. The bond of unconditional trust is broken. And Himmler begins to think a dangerous thought. Maybe the Führer is wrong about everything. His confidence is shaken. His health is deteriorating. The failures in the Vosges and Vistula have wasted all the political capital he gained after the July bomb plot. Generals now mock him behind his back. And Himmler realizes, when Germany falls, he falls with it. Unless he acts. Without Hitler, a plan begins forming. Himmler has access to Germany's best intelligence networks. But for his most sensitive mission, he doesn't choose a spy or a diplomat. He chooses his massage therapist, Felix Kirsten. Baltic German, born 1898. A physical therapist who treats Europe's elite for chronic pain. His patient list reads like a who's who: Dutch royalty, Swedish aristocrats, German industrialists. In 1939, he began treating Himmler's stress-induced stomach cramps. He's the only person who can relieve Himmler's pain. Himmler calls him, quote, "You are my Buddha." Kirsten gains unprecedented access. He attends meetings. He hears secrets. Himmler confides his fears and ambitions to this mild-mannered therapist. In August 1942, Kirsten helped arrange Himmler's visit to Finland. He's completely trusted. And he has connections across neutral Europe. Enter Count Folke Bernadotte. Swedish aristocrat, nephew of King Gustav V. Head of the Swedish Red Cross. In 1943 and 44, he organized prisoner exchanges that brought 11,000 Allied POWs out of Germany through Sweden. He has a working relationship with both sides. A reputation as an honest broker. The perfect intermediary. Early 1945, the correspondence begins. Messages pass through Kirsten in Stockholm. Ostensibly humanitarian discussions. The real agenda, opening a communication channel to the Western Allies. Himmler sends SS Brigadier Führer Walter Schellenberg, his spy master, to Stockholm for face-to-face meetings with Bernadotte. Testing the waters for a bigger conversation. Himmler calculates his leverage. The Nordic nations care about Scandinavian prisoners in German camps. The Western Allies want to appear humanitarian. Himmler controls access to those prisoners. Human lives as bargaining chips. He orders the release of 20,000 concentration camp inmates. Priority: Scandinavians, Norwegians, Danes, Swedes. Swedish Red Cross buses, painted white, collect them from the camps. Safe transport to Sweden. Is it a genuine humanitarian gesture? Or cynical manipulation? Probably both. The white buses operation becomes Himmler's calling card. Look, he's saying, I can be reasonable. April 20th, 1945. Hitler's 56th birthday. The last birthday celebration at the Reich Chancellery in Berlin. The building is a bombed-out shell. Soviet artillery is already hitting the eastern suburbs. The inner circle gathers: Goering, Goebbels, Bormann, Himmler, Speer. The atmosphere is surreal, desperate. Hitler is a physical wreck, trembling hands, stooped posture, aged beyond his 56 years. but the birthday ritual must be observed. Himmler stands before the Führer. He swears complete allegiance. Mein Führer, we will fight to the last man. Hitler accepts the oath, still believing in final victory. But Himmler's mind is elsewhere. As soon as the ceremony ends, he leaves Berlin, heads north 70 kilometers to Kirsten's country estate at Hartswald. Tomorrow, a meeting that will seal his fate. 2:30 a.m., April 21st. Norbert Masur arrives at Hartswald. He's the Swedish representative of the World Jewish Congress. Flown from Stockholm to Tempelhof Airport in Berlin, then driven to the estate. He's been waiting in darkness for hours. Himmler arrives exhausted from the birthday party. But he's energized for this conversation. For 2.5 hours, these two enemies sit across from each other in an extraordinary negotiation. Himmler tries to justify the Holocaust. He tells Masur the Jews were enemies of the state, that he was following orders. Then he says something astonishing. I want to bury the hatchet between us and the Jews. Masur sits stunned. The architect of genocide wants reconciliation? Himmler continues, if I had had my own way, many things would have been done differently. He truly believes this. No understanding of his own culpability. No empathy for the victims. Only the calculation, how can I use this to survive? The pitch to the Allies is clear. Through Masur and Bernadotte, I am the Nazi leader you should be talking to. Hitler is finished. I am the future. Let's set aside the final solution and move on. Focus on the real enemy, the Soviet Union. What Himmler doesn't understand, the Allied position was decided long ago. Unconditional surrender to all Allies. No separate peace with anyone. And especially not with Heinrich Himmler. He's marked as a major war criminal. Trial and execution are inevitable. But Himmler's intelligence services have failed him. He's overestimated Western fear of the Soviets. Underestimated Allied unity. He doesn't grasp the depth of hatred for the SS and everything it represents. He believes his pragmatism will win the day. April 23rd, Lübeck. The Swedish consulate. Himmler's first face-to-face meeting with Count Bernadotte. This is the critical moment. Himmler assesses the situation. Hitler will be dead in 2 to 3 days. Berlin is encircled by Soviet armies. The Führer bunker is under constant bombardment. I am basically the leader in waiting. He explains the succession law of 1941. After Rudolf Hess fled to Britain, Hitler decreed that Reichsmarschall Hermann Göring would be his successor. But Göring is sidelined, disgraced, a drug addict. The Luftwaffe's failures destroyed his reputation. There's no way Himmler will serve under Göring. The offer to General Dwight D. Eisenhower, Germany will surrender to the Western Allies only. Under Himmler's leadership, the SS and police will maintain order, prevent chaos. No surrender to the Soviet Union. Germany will continue fighting in the East. Bernadotte suggests, put it in writing. Write a formal letter to Eisenhower. Himmler agrees. And with that signature, he commits treason to paper. The trap is set. But Himmler doesn't know the jaws are about to snap shut. April 23, 1945. Two crises explode on the same day. Morning. Himmler is in Lübeck making his surrender offer to Count Bernadotte. Afternoon. Hermann Göring triggers a leadership crisis 700 miles south in Berchtesgaden. Göring left Berlin on April 20th after Hitler's birthday celebration. He'd attended the military conference in the Führer bunker that afternoon. What he witnessed terrified him. Hitler suffered an emotional breakdown during the situation briefing. Screaming, incoherent rage. Then the declaration, "The war is lost." He renounced all responsibility for the army and the state. Luftwaffe officers at the meeting reported everything to Göring. Their assessment: the Führer has broken. He's abandoned his duties. According to the 1941 succession law, Göring should assume leadership. Göring had already made preparations. Trainloads of art and antiques, much of it looted from private collections across occupied Europe, were being shipped south from his massive Karrenhall estate near Berlin. Destination: Berchtesgaden in southern Bavaria, near Hitler's mountain retreat. Göring maintained a house there, safe from the Soviet advance. From Berchtesgaden, Göring composed a telegram to Hitler. The wording was careful, respectful. Mein Führer, in view of your decision to remain in the fortress of Berlin, do you agree that I take over, at once, the total leadership of the Reich, with full freedom of action at home and abroad, as your deputy, in accordance with your decree of June 1941? It was a reasonable question. Hitler had just announced he'd lost control. The succession law was clear. Göring was simply asking for permission to do what the law already allowed. But Hitler had recovered from his momentary collapse. And Martin Bormann was waiting. Bormann, Hitler's private secretary, the shadowy power behind the throne, intercepted the telegram. He saw an opportunity. Bormann had always hated Göring. Here was the chance to destroy a rival. He brought the telegram to Hitler with a sinister interpretation. Mein Führer, this is not a request. This is a coup attempt. Göring is trying to seize power while you're trapped in Berlin. Hitler, his paranoia, inflamed, went berserk. He ordered Göring's immediate arrest, stripped him of all positions, expelled him from the Nazi Party, removed him from the line of succession. The Reichsmarschall, Hitler's designated heir since 1941, was finished. The irony: Göring had been loyal. He'd asked permission, not seized power. But Bormann's manipulation worked perfectly. Hitler believed the coup story. For Himmler, 700 miles north in Lübeck, this should have been perfect. Göring eliminated. The succession line now clear. Himmler was next in seniority. He controlled the SS, the police, the Interior Ministry. He had 900,000 armed men. He was positioned to take power when Hitler fell. But Himmler didn't know his own treason was about to explode. The same day Göring fell, Himmler's secret was leaking to the world. April 26th. SS Brigadeführer Walter Schellenberg is in Stockholm. A message arrives through Count Bernadotte via the Swedish liaison at Lübeck. The Allied response to Himmler's surrender offer. Rejected. The specific wording is brutal. Himmler is unacceptable to the Western powers as a person with whom discussions could be undertaken. Translation: war criminal, not negotiating partner. No role in post-war Germany. Arrest and trial inevitable. Schellenberg makes a catastrophic decision. He doesn't inform Himmler. He fears his reaction. He hopes the situation might change. The delay will prove fatal. Meanwhile, Himmler has sent another envoy. General Arthur Vanneman, a US Army Air Force officer, captured by the Germans earlier in the war. On April 24th, Himmler dispatched him to Switzerland, carrying a formal capitulation offer to Eisenhower. Another channel, same doomed message. April 27th, morning. Himmler has breakfast at Arpki with Schellenberg and Bernadotte. He's still hopeful. Still talking about a limited accord with the Allies. Some high office in the post-war government. He's completely delusional about his value. But the secret is already spreading. The Swedish government informed the Allies of Himmler's offer. The Allies informed each other, America, Britain, the Soviet Union. And someone leaked it to journalists. Reuters picks up the story. It's about to go worldwide. That same day, April 27th, another crisis erupts in Berlin. SS Gruppenführer Hermann Fegelein has disappeared. He's Himmler's liaison officer at the Führer bunker. Also married to Gretel Braun, Eva Braun's sister. He went absent without leave from the bunker. Hitler's bodyguards find him in his Berlin apartment. Drunk, naked, with his mistress. A suitcase packed with civilian clothes sitting by the door. Obviously planning to flee. They drag him back to the bunker. Bormann immediately demands execution for desertion. Hitler initially refuses. Fegelein is family, married to Eva's sister. But the Führer is suspicious. What does Fegelein know? April 28th, evening. The bomb drops. BBC Radio broadcasts a Reuters press report. Heinrich Himmler's secret peace negotiations revealed. Details of the meetings with Count Bernadotte. The offer to surrender to Western Allies only. Worldwide sensation. In the Führer bunker, the radio operator picks it up. Martin Bormann gleefully brings the news to Hitler. Perfect timing for Bormann, another rival destroyed. Witnesses describe Hitler's reaction as berserk. His face turned purple with rage. Screaming. Incoherent. Betrayed by my loyal Heinrich. The one man he'd trusted absolutely. Worse than Goering's so-called coup. The orders come rapid fire. Heinrich Himmler declared traitor. Stripped of all offices, Reichsführer SS, Chief of Police, Minister of the Interior. Ordered, arrested. Every SS unit in Germany to hunt him down. And Hermann Fegelein's fate is sealed. Hitler is now convinced. Fegelein knew about Himmler's plot. That's why he was fleeing Berlin. Despite Eva Braun's tears and desperate pleas for her brother-in-law's life, Hitler is unmoved. Fegelein is taken to the Reich Chancellery Garden. A firing squad executes him. His body is left in the rubble. A message: this is what happens to traitors. April 29th. Hitler drafts his last will and testament. Hermann Göring, expelled from the Nazi Party, dismissed from all offices. Heinrich Himmler, expelled from the Nazi Party, dismissed from all offices. Both removed from any position in the state. The successor is named not Himmler, not Göring. Grand Admiral Karl Dönitz, commander of the German Navy, headquartered at Flensburg in northern Germany, chosen for loyalty and competence. He will lead Germany through its final days. April 30th, afternoon. Adolf Hitler shoots himself in the bunker. Eva Braun takes cyanide beside him. Their bodies are carried to the Reich Chancellery Garden, doused with gasoline and burned. Karl Dönitz becomes President of Germany. The war is almost over. Heinrich Himmler's world has collapsed in 10 days. April 20th, second most powerful man in Germany, attending Hitler's birthday, planning his diplomatic coup. April 30th, declared traitor, stripped of all power, hunted by his own SS, the Führer dead, a new government hostile to him taking control. Everything he built over 16 years, gone. The empire he controlled, dissolved. The future he imagined, destroyed. But here's the strange part. Himmler is not arrested. Despite Hitler's explicit order to hunt him down, despite being declared the Reich's most wanted traitor, Heinrich Himmler remains free. For days, he continues operating from his headquarters in northern Germany. Why? May 6, 1945. 6 days after Hitler's death. Himmler is at Grand Admiral Dönitz's headquarters in Flensburg, still hoping for a position in the new government. He actually has leverage. He still commands SS units in northern Germany, Denmark, and Norway. Dönitz needs SS cooperation for an orderly surrender. So, Dönitz does something remarkable. He appoints Himmler commander of all German forces in those territories. Think about that. Hitler ordered Himmler's arrest. Dönitz ignores it. He continues meeting with Himmler. They discuss the imminent fall of Hamburg to British forces. On May 5th, they even have lunch together. Then, Hitler's last will and testament arrives. The official copy reaches Flensburg. It's clear and unambiguous. Heinrich Himmler is dismissed from all offices of state. No longer Reichsführer SS. No longer Chief of Police. No longer Minister of the Interior. No longer commander of anything. Finished. Count Schwerin von Krosigk, the new Minister of the Interior replacing Himmler, delivers the final blow. He tells Himmler bluntly, "You should drive straight to Field Marshal Montgomery's headquarters. Say you are Heinrich Himmler. Take full responsibility for everything the SS has done. Himmler's face turns white. He says nothing. He simply turns and leaves Donitz's headquarters. He never returns. Now, he has two choices. Option 1. Surrender. Drive to Montgomery, as Krosigk suggested. Face trial at Nuremberg. Inevitable execution. Public humiliation. Historical judgment. Option 2. Hide. Disappear into the chaos of defeated Germany is less than Hashon. Zero hash is greater than wait for the political situation to change. Re-emerge when circumstances are favourable. As he told Krosigk earlier, the Allies will never discover me. He chooses to hide. But where? And why does he choose the most dangerous route possible? That's the mystery historians have never adequately explained. Himmler could have fled to Sweden. It was close, neutral, and offered a path to escape from Europe. He had contacts there through Kirsten and Bernadotte. The Swedish border was practically within reach from Flensburg. Instead, he heads south, through the entire length of Allied-occupied Germany, through the British zone, through the American zone. Destination, Bavaria. The most dangerous route imaginable. Why take this insane risk? What's in Bavaria that's worth gambling his life? The answer lies in something Himmler prepared a year earlier. Something the Americans discovered purely by accident. Something worth $49.6 million in today's money. Gold. But to understand Himmler's plan, we need to follow his journey from Flensburg to British custody. A journey that begins with a false identity and ends with a small glass capsule. Or so the British would have us believe. Vienna Grothmann, Himmler's adjutant, told British interrogators after his capture, the plan was to reach the Harz Mountains. Hide there for weeks, maybe months. Wait for the chaos of early occupation to settle. Then move south to the Alps and cross into Italy or Switzerland. But Grothmann never explained why the Harz Mountains specifically, or why risk crossing the entire length of occupied Germany when Sweden was right there. Historians have puzzled over this for 80 years. Until 2015, when a researcher found a document in the US National Archives. An order from Heinrich Himmler dated April 1944, 1 year before Germany's collapse, instructing that gold and currency weighing approximately 900 kilograms be deposited in a secret vault. Location: the city post office in Plauen, Saxony. Plauen sits in eastern Germany near the Harz Mountains. On April 16, 1945, US forces captured the city after heavy bombing. Himmler knew this. He was still receiving military briefings as Reichsführer SS. He also knew something else. A captured German map showed the post-war division of Europe. Plauen would be in the Soviet occupation zone. But the Americans didn't know about the vault. Not yet. Communications were cut. The chaos of occupation meant information moved slowly. For all Himmler knew in early May, his gold was still sitting there, untouched. April 26, 1945. 10 days after Plauen fell, Task Force Fischer arrives in the city. This was a specialized 75-man U.S. Army unit commanded by Lieutenant Commander Joel Fisher, a Treasury Department lawyer in civilian life. Their mission: follow the advancing troops and hunt Nazi gold. Reichsbank officials in Plauen admitted there were bags of gold inside a vault in the post office basement, but they claimed the key was lost. It had been buried with an official killed in the bombing, they said. His body somewhere under tons of rubble. Task Force Fischer called in a combat engineer company. They used explosives to blow the vault open. Inside, $250,000 in gold coins. 1 million Swiss francs in gold coins. 98,450 Dutch guilders in gold coins. 151,560 Norwegian kroner in gold coins, plus smaller amounts of Yugoslav dinars and Hungarian currency. Total weight, 900 kilograms in 35 sacks. At 1945 gold prices, it was worth over $1 million. At today's prices, $49.6 million. And every coin was in Heinrich Himmler's personal account. Why gold coins instead of bars? Because coins are mobile, easy to carry, universally exchangeable. You can use them in small amounts without drawing attention. Perfect currency for a fugitive. Now, Grothman's testimony makes sense. First destination, Harz Mountains, near Plauen. Hide for weeks while the early occupation chaos settles. Meanwhile, send an agent in civilian clothes to Plauen. Contact local Nazi officials who are protecting the vault. Retrieve some or all of the gold. Transport it back to the hideout. Then, with $49 million in portable wealth, move to the Alps. Cross into Italy, where rat lines, organized escape routes, run through Genoa to the port. Red Cross passports could be forged or purchased. Argentine entry visas obtained. Board a ship to South America or the Middle East. This wasn't improvised desperation. This was a carefully planned escape route that Himmler had prepared a full year in advance. But there's evidence he had other assets too. 2 strongboxes stored at the house of Fräulein Springer, wife of a staff officer from Army Group Vistula. One box contained gold jewellery, a pearl necklace, and diamond-encrusted watches. The other held large amounts of foreign currency, banknotes. On the night of May 12th to 13th, an SS officer collected these boxes. By then, Himmler had already left the area. The boxes were never seen again. Were they taken to a rendezvous point in the Harz Mountains? We'll never know. The only money mentioned with Himmler's travelling party was 500 Reichsmarks, used to pay a fisherman to ferry them across a river. When British soldiers captured Himmler on May 22nd, they found no gold, no diamonds, no foreign currency. Himmler wasn't carrying his wealth with him. He was travelling toward it. This explains everything. Why go south when Sweden was safe and close? Why risk the most dangerous route through occupied territory? Why specifically the Harz Mountains? Himmler wasn't a desperate fugitive running blindly. He was following a treasure map. But he never made it to the Harz Mountains. He barely made it 200 miles. May 6th to 10th, 1945. Himmler gathers his remaining loyalists at a requisitioned farmhouse in Zarentien. 15 men total. Dr. Rudolf Brandt, his chief administrative officer. Dr. Karl Gebhardt, his personal doctor. SS Brigadeführer Otto Ohlendorf, a major war criminal, commander of Einsatzgruppe D, responsible for murdering 90,000 Jews in Ukraine. Josef Kiermaier, his personal aide. Werner Grothmann and Heinz Macker, his adjutants. 7 NCOs. They have 4 Wanderer W11 field cars, Himmler's preferred vehicle. Weapons, pistols, and submachine guns. Fuel, which by this point is more valuable than gold. Food supplies. Everything needed for a long journey. The transformation begins. All insignia removed from uniforms. No rank badges, no awards, no SS runes. Plain grey-green uniforms that could belong to any demobilized soldier. For their cover story, they choose to pose as Geheime Feldpolizei, secret field police. This seems smart. Secret field police units were staffed by middle-aged men, often unfit due to war wounds or illness. Himmler is 44. Several others in the group are also middle-aged. They won't look suspicious. But they've made a fatal mistake. What they don't know, the secret field police, is part of the Sicherheitsdienst, the SD, the SS security service. And the Allied automatic arrest list includes all SD members. Even NCOs. They've chosen the worst possible cover story. Himmler's personal disguise is more elaborate. He shaves off his distinctive mustache, puts a black eye patch over his left eye, wears a civilian blue raincoat over bits of German army uniform. His false papers identify him as Sergeant Heinrich Hitzinger. Unit, Special Armoured Company attached to Secret Field Police. Demobilized May 3rd, 1945. Status, ill, travelling home. Here's the chilling detail. Heinrich Hitzinger was a real person. A rural policeman who'd been tried and executed for defeatism several months earlier. His papers had been confiscated by the Gestapo. Himmler chose the identity of a dead man who bore a strong resemblance to him. This reveals weeks or months of planning. Not a hasty improvisation. Multiple contingencies prepared in advance. May 10th. 2 days after Germany's official surrender. The journey begins. The roads are chaos. Millions of refugees streaming in all directions. Demobilized German soldiers wandering aimlessly. Destroyed vehicles blocking routes. It should provide perfect camouflage for 15 more men in a group. But progress is agonizingly slow. In 2 days, they cover only 60 miles. By May 11th, they reach Neuhaus, near the Elbe River estuary. Then disaster. They're stuck on the north bank, with no way to move the cars across. The 4 Mercedes field cars are abandoned. From now on, they're on foot. They find a fisherman at Barmstedt. Himmler pays him 500 Reichsmarks to ferry the group across to the south bank of the Oste River. It's the last money anyone will mention in connection with Himmler's party. May 12th to 18th. 6 days of walking. They move south through the countryside, avoiding major towns. Hamburg and Bremen are under full British occupation with checkpoints everywhere. Safer to stay in open country. The conditions are brutal. Sleeping in farms, barns, sometimes beside the road. Increasingly dirty and dishevelled. Footsore and exhausted. These are middle-aged men, not young soldiers. Himmler, with his chronic health problems, is the weakest. May 18th. They reach Bremerwörde, a small town on the Oste River. There's a bridge, but it's guarded by British troops. The group takes over a farmhouse on Waldstrasse. The owners have no idea who these shabby refugees really are. Just more displaced people among millions. Joseph Kiermaier, Himmler's personal aide, goes forward to reconnoitre. The bridge is the only way across. They need special movement passes from the local Landrat, the mayor appointed by the British. For 3 days, May 18th to 21st, Kiermaier tries. He approaches the mayor with a story. Sick troops going home to Munich need passes to cross the checkpoint. The mayor is suspicious. He probably realizes these are Nazi fugitives. He refuses all requests. The irony, there's an unguarded ford downriver. They could have waded across with no British soldiers in sight. But they never find it, fixated on the bridge. May 21st, 3 p.m. They decide to try anyway. The plan, Himmler and his 2 adjutants, Grothmann and Macker, hold back at the farmhouse. The rest of the group attempts the bridge first. If they get across successfully, they'll come back for Himmler. Kiermaier and Dr. Gebhardt approach the bridge. They're stopped by Sergeant Ken Baseborough of the 103rd Field Security Reserve Detachment, British Army Intelligence Corps. Baseborough examines their demobilisation papers. Secret Field Police stamps dated May 1st and May 3rd. Smudged SD stamps. He knows immediately, Secret Field Police equals automatic arrest. But he keeps this to himself. Instead, he learns from Dr. Gebhardt that this is just the advance party. A larger group of sick ex-Secret Field Police is waiting. Baseborough sees an opportunity. He quickly organises 2 army trucks and an escort. Tells Gebhardt he's helping the sick soldiers. Sends the trucks to collect the rest of the group. Uses Loser's Mill on the river as a processing office. Alerts his commander, Staff Sergeant John Huff, Secret Field Police Party incoming. 4 p.m. The trucks return with Kiermaier's group. But 3 men are missing: Himmler, Grothmann, Macker. At Loser's Mill, Sergeant Arthur Britton, Dutch-born British NCO, examines the papers. Obviously forged. He separates the youngest German and interrogates him. The man breaks quickly. Admits the stamps are from SD headquarters. They all belong to one group. 6 p.m. Mass arrest. Everyone loaded on trucks and driven to Westertimk civilian internment camp near Zeven. But Staff Sergeant Huff retains Dr. Gebhardt. Together, they drive to the farmhouse to collect the 3 remaining men. They arrive to find it empty. Himmler, Grothmann, and Macker are gone. British intelligence is alerted. 3 secret field police suspects on the run. Area locked down. Patrols searching. May 22nd, around noon. Himmler's small group assumes Kiermaier crossed the bridge successfully. They decide to try themselves. They walk through Bremerverde streets. Grothmann and Macker wear long SS officers' raincoats with all insignia removed. They flank the much shorter Himmler, who shuffles between them wearing his blue raincoat, bits of army uniform, and the black eye patch. A British patrol spots them. 3 suspicious men. Escorts them to Loser's Mill for questioning. Sergeant Britton receives them. Reports to Huff by phone. 3 more secret field police. Completing the group. Heinrich Himmler is now in Allied hands. Identity: unknown. Status: low priority prisoner. Just another German soldier caught with forged papers. If his false identity holds, he'll be processed, held for a few weeks or months, then released. The plan could still work. He could still reach the gold. Still escape to South America. That night, he sleeps on the floor of Loser's Mill, using grain sacks as a mattress. Grothmann and Macker beside him. A British guard outside. If he's planning suicide, why not do it now? Alone with 2 loyal adjutants who could coordinate the story. Privacy, dignity, control. But he doesn't. Because he still believes the plan is working. The next morning, they're loaded onto trucks. Destination: Camp Kolkhausen near Barnstedt, a special interrogation facility 45 miles away. Several stops along the route. They arrive around 6:30 p.m., May 23rd. Prisoners stand by the wire, watching new arrivals. Camp routine. Among them, Karl Kaufmann, former Gauleiter of Hamburg. He'd met Himmler multiple times at official functions. Kaufmann sees the small man with the shaved mustache and black eye patch. Recognition hits him like electricity. That's Heinrich Himmler. Word spreads through the camp in whispers. The Reichsführer SS is here. Himmler reportedly doesn't recognize Kaufmann, or pretends not to. Shortly afterward, he removes his eye patch. He knows the game is almost up. Sooner or later, a prisoner seeking favour will tell the British. His false identity won't hold. But Himmler still has one card to play. Intelligence. He's the most senior Nazi in Allied captivity. Goering surrendered to the Americans. He knows everyone's secrets. British-German peace negotiations in 1940–41. Soviet intelligence networks in the West. Hidden Nazi gold locations. Swiss bank accounts. SS operations still active across Europe. It's May 1945. Germany is defeated, but a new war is beginning. West versus the Soviet Union. The British and Americans need intelligence on the Soviets. Himmler controlled massive spy networks in the USSR that are still operational. That information is extremely valuable. There's precedent. Other Nazis are already being recruited. Operation Paperclip brings scientists to America. The Gehlen organization recruits intelligence officers. Why not Himmler? He can expect months, maybe years of interrogation before any trial. Time to negotiate. Maybe trade testimony for life. War crimes evidence against other Nazis in exchange for something less than execution. 7 p.m., May 23rd. Himmler makes his decision. He demands to see the camp commandant. British NCOs refuse at first. He's just another prisoner. But Himmler insists. Arguments back and forth. Finally, he's granted an interview with Captain Thomas Sylvester. This is the choice that seals his fate. If he'd stayed quiet, maintained his cover as Sergeant Hitzinger, he might have been released eventually. The plan could have continued. Instead, he voluntarily reveals himself. Confident in his intelligence value, believing he can negotiate, sure that the British need him alive. It's his last miscalculation. In 5 hours, he'll be dead. 7 p.m., May 23rd. 3 men enter Captain Sylvester's office at Camp Kolkhausen. Sylvester later describes the scene. The man in the middle is small, ill-looking, shabbily dressed. Unremarkable. But his 2 companions are different. Evidently military men. Tall, erect bearing, severe haircuts. Clearly officers, not sergeants. Sylvester immediately orders Grothman and Macker removed from the office. Placed under close guard separately. Himmler is alone now. He puts on his glasses. Sylvester asks the standard question, "What is your name?" The quiet reply, "Heinrich Himmler." Sylvester grabs the phone. Calls British Second Army headquarters in Lüneburg. Asks for Major Rice, an intelligence officer. "I have Heinrich Himmler here." Rice's response, "I don't believe you." A muddled conversation follows. Sylvester insisting. Rice skeptical. Finally, Rice agrees. "I'm coming immediately." While waiting, Sylvester orders Himmler to strip. NCOs carefully examine his clothing. Discovery: a brass capsule container. Inside, a glass ampule. Obviously cyanide. Sylvester holds it up. "What is that?" Himmler's answer, "That is my medicine. It cures stomach cramp. It cures stomach cramp." They find a second brass container. This one is empty. Where is the second ampule? The body search continues. Clothing thoroughly checked. Body examined. But they don't search his mouth. And they don't search his rectum, the only other place to hide something. Sylvester is afraid. If a glass ampule is already in Himmler's mouth, searching might cause him to bite down. Better to wait for senior officers. Then the official report claims something that defies physics. According to Sylvester, Himmler dresses again. Tea and thick British Army sandwiches are brought in. Himmler, quote, tucked into both. Here's the problem. Later, they'll claim Himmler had a cyanide ampule in his mouth, measuring 35 by 9 millimeters. That's bigger than a AAA battery. How do you eat thick sandwiches with that in your mouth? How do you drink hot tea? How do you chew and swallow? Physically impossible. Either the Tea Party never happened, invented by Sylvester to fill time in his report, or the ampule wasn't in Himmler's mouth at this point. There's another anomaly. When the corpse is examined the next day, there's stubble growth on Himmler's face. This suggests he was allowed to shave at some point during the evening. Against regulations for war crime suspects, Sylvester later denies this. But the evidence on the body suggests otherwise. 7:30 p.m. Major Rice arrives with his identification team. He brings a photograph, Himmler in his black SS uniform. A short biography. Nazi Party and SS membership numbers. Date of birth. A copy of Himmler's signature. What Rice doesn't have: height, weight, fingerprints, dental records, any other physical identifying information. His task is simple: establish identity beyond reasonable doubt. The interrogation begins. Nazi Party number. Himmler gives a vague answer, approximately correct but imprecise. SS number, reasonably accurate but not exact. Date of birth, October 7th, 1900, correct. Then, Rice requests a signature. Himmler agrees on one strange condition: I will sign if you destroy it immediately afterwards. Why this condition? Doesn't want his signature in British hands? Afraid of forgery? Or just asserting some small measure of control? We'll never know. The signature matches Rice's specimen. Identification confirmed. This is Heinrich Himmler. And then Himmler becomes chatty. He mentions a letter he wrote to Field Marshal Montgomery on May 8th. Explains his intention to, quote, lie low for a few weeks until circumstances are more favourable for an interview. He predicts war between the Allies and Soviets very soon. The USSR is the real enemy, he says. He offers intelligence cooperation. His overall demeanour, helpful, engaged, forward-looking. Planning future interrogations. Discussing what he can offer. This is not the behaviour of a man planning immediate suicide. 8:30 p.m. Rice telephones Colonel Michael Murphy, Chief of Intelligence for British Second Army. Reports. Identity confirmed, prisoner cooperative, ready for transfer. Murphy sets out for Kolkhausen. But Murphy has a problem. He's suffering from a massive hangover. Multiple sources confirm he's, quote, rather out of sorts from a string of victory parties. Not at his best. But this is Heinrich Himmler. The biggest catch. Bigger than Goering, who went to the Americans. This is career-making. Murphy wants personal credit. 9:45 p.m. Colonel Murphy arrives at Kolkhausen with Colonel James MacNaughton Osborne, a senior military intelligence officer. Murphy confers with Rice. He's briefed on the identification process, Himmler's cooperative attitude, the cyanide capsule found, the second capsule missing. The body has been searched twice already, but not thoroughly. Murphy makes a decision. Strip search Himmler again. Himmler refuses. Murphy threatens to have him forcibly stripped. Himmler reluctantly complies. After the second search, Himmler is offered British battle dress, a clean uniform. He refuses to wear it. He's allowed to keep his grey German army shirt, underpants, and socks. Given an army blanket as a makeshift coat. His original uniform is retained by the British. Murphy is concerned about the missing second ampule. He decides a doctor should conduct a body cavity search. But not the camp doctor. This is strange. The camp has medical facilities. A doctor is available immediately. The search could be done right away. Instead, Murphy orders transport to Lüneburg, 45 miles away, to a requisitioned house designated House for Special Purposes. 31 Owelsener Strasse. A doctor will meet them there. Why not use the camp doctor? Why a 45-mile drive through the night? Why give Himmler opportunity to kill himself in the car? Unless something about 31A was important. Or something about the particular doctor they'd chosen. Or they wanted Himmler away from witnesses at the camp. 10:40 p.m. The car journey begins. Himmler sits in the back seat between Murphy's second-in-command and a guard. Murphy rides in front as passenger. During the drive, Murphy gets lost. Himmler offers directions to Lüneburg. He knows the area. Helpful, engaged, even gives driving tips. This is Himmler's final journey. Alive, talking, cooperative. Still planning for months of interrogation ahead. Expecting to arrive at 31A, be examined, then begin the long process of intelligence debriefing. He has no idea that in less than an hour he'll be dead. 11:30 p.m. Arrival at 31 Owelsener Strasse. The house is a requisitioned German civilian home, now a British intelligence facility. It has an ominous designation, House for Special Purposes. But it has an even more ominous recent history. May 21st, 1945. 2 days earlier. SS Obergruppenführer Hans Adolf Preutzmann was held in this house. He was SS and police leader for Russia North and Ukraine. Age 43. Appointed by Himmler to organize Werwolf, the Nazi stay-behind partisan forces. Preutzmann was captured and brought to 31A. He was searched thoroughly. Multiple times. and then he committed suicide. Swallowed poison, quote, despite being thoroughly searched. The British explanation: he was clever. Now, 2 days later, another senior SS officer arrives at the same house, about to undergo the same searches. With the same officer in charge, Colonel Michael Murphy. Murphy later claimed he was, quote, keen that such an event would never occur again on his watch. The parallel is eerie. The pattern, unmistakable. Waiting at the house, Captain Clement Jepson Wells of the Royal Army Medical Corps. Age 55. In civilian life, a general practitioner. A country doctor, not a military intelligence specialist. Considerably older than Colonel Murphy, who outranks him. Also present, Company Sergeant Major Edwin Austin of the Headquarters Defence Company. He'll assist with the examination. The atmosphere is immediately tense. Murphy to Wells: examine Himmler for poison. Wells, annoyed: I am a doctor, not a detective. Murphy, arrogant: you will do as you are told. The strain between these officers will shape everything that follows. Wells resents being ordered about by a younger man. Murphy insists on his authority. Bad start. The examination room is the front parlour. The official report later describes it as furnished, warm, comfortable. But other witnesses contradict this. The room was actually unfurnished. Freezing cold. Windows standing wide open. Floor bare. Not a homely interrogation room at all. Why the difference? Because the room was furnished later when they brought in photographers and newsreel cameras. Made to look better than it was. Creating a false impression for the historical record is less than #, 5 hashes greater than 11:35 p.m. Himmler is ordered to strip for the 3rd time this evening. First search, Sylvester at Kolkhausen, clothing only. Second search, Murphy at Kolkhausen, full body but not mouth. Third search, now Wells at 31A. Murphy leaves the room. Official reason, none given. Likely, hungover, needs the lavatory. Or perhaps deliberately absent for what comes next. In the room now, only 3 people. Captain Wells, CSM Austin, Heinrich Himmler, naked. Wells later describes his examination strategy. Check the body all over first to, quote, lull Himmler into a false sense of security. Then examine the mouth last. Element of surprise. The search sequence: torso, nothing. Arms, nothing. Legs, nothing. Feet, nothing. He does not examine the rectum. The only other hiding place for a capsule. Standard procedure for a high-value prisoner. But Wells skips it. 11:50 p.m. The mouth examination. Wells asks Himmler to open his mouth. Himmler complies. Wells later claims he saw, quote, the tip of a small object sticking up between the left cheek and teeth. A glass ampule. Then the critical moment. Himmler bites down, hard on the object, also on Wells's fingers, crushing the glass ampule. Cyanide released. Wells shouts, "My God, it's in his mouth!" He's done it on me. Is less than hashon, 5 hash, is greater than. Historians have noted that this phrase, "done it on me," sounds working class, not something an educated middle-class country doctor would say. But that's what Wells reported. Himmler's face contorts with pain. Bright red. Veins standing out. Eyes go glassy. He collapses to the floor. Multiple people rush into the room. Major Norman Whitaker, an intelligence officer. Others not all identified. Wells tries desperately. Wet handkerchief to mop out the mouth. Artificial respiration. At one point, they jerk Himmler up by the ankles, trying to make the poison run out. The final moments, heavy breathing for 30 seconds. Pulse continues for 1 minute longer. Then stops. Time of death. Approximately 11:52 p.m., May 23, 1945. Heinrich Himmler, age 44, dead. His body is left on the floor, covered with a single army blanket. Naked. In a freezing cold room. Guarded all night. Colonel Murphy returns after the death. From the lavatory. Or wherever he was. Conveniently absent during the actual moment. And the questions begin immediately. Because nothing about this death makes sense. Let's be clear about what the official story claims. Heinrich Himmler concealed a 35 by 9 mm glass cyanide capsule in his mouth. Through 3 separate strip searches over 4 hours, while eating thick sandwiches and drinking hot tea at Kolkhausen, while talking and giving directions during a 45-minute car ride, then bit down on it during Dr. Wells' examination, killing himself to avoid trial. Every single part of this story has problems. Start with the timeline. 6:30 p.m. at Kolkhausen. Himmler arrives at the camp. According to Captain Sylvester's report, tea and sandwiches were served after the first search. Thick British Army doorstep sandwiches, the kind you have to bite and chew. A 35 by 9 mm capsule is roughly the size of a AAA battery. Try putting one in your mouth right now. Then try to eat a sandwich. Try to drink hot tea. Try to talk normally. It's physically impossible. Either the tea party never happened, invented by Sylvester to fill his report, or the capsule wasn't in Himmler's mouth at 6:30 p.m. But if it wasn't in his mouth then, when did it get there? The first search at 7 p.m. found 1 capsule in his clothing. A second brass container was empty. They searched his body, but not his mouth, not his rectum. The second search at 9:45 p.m. when Murphy arrived, same result. Body searched, mouth not searched, rectum not searched. The third search at 11:35 p.m., Wells examines everything except the rectum. Then finally checks the mouth. Claims to see the tip of an object. Himmler bites down. So, according to the official story, Himmler had this capsule in his mouth for at least 5 hours. Eating, drinking, talking the entire time. 3 searchers failed to find it because they didn't look in his mouth, afraid he'd bite down if they did. But if they were afraid he'd bite down, why did Wells check the mouth at all? Why not just keep him talking, keep his mouth occupied? Why not let him starve if necessary? Why not simply accept he might kill himself and let it happen on his own terms? The logic doesn't hold. Then there's Himmler's behavior all evening. He voluntarily revealed his identity when he could have maintained his cover. He chatted about his plans, his intelligence value, future interrogations. He mentioned his letter to Montgomery. He predicted Soviet-Allied war. He offered cooperation. He gave driving directions in the car. Not once did he show desperation or despair. Not once did he act like a man planning immediate suicide. And he had so many better opportunities if that was his plan. At the farmhouse, when British soldiers came for him, privacy, dignity, 2 loyal adjutants to coordinate the story. During his arrest at the bridge, avoid the humiliation of interrogation entirely. At Loser's Mill, sleeping on grain sacks, alone with Grothman and Marker. In the truck to Kolkhausen during transport. At Kolkhausen, before revealing his identity. In the car to Lüneburg, a private moment. Why wait until the 3rd search? Naked, vulnerable, strangers watching, no control, no dignity is less than hash on. 5 hash is greater than. It doesn't fit the psychological profile of a control-obsessed man like Heinrich Himmler. And then there's what Himmler possessed that made him valuable. He knew about alleged British-German peace negotiations in 1940–41 when Britain was fighting alone. If revealed at Nuremberg, this could destroy Churchill politically. He controlled the Abwehr, German military intelligence, after Admiral Canaris was arrested following the July bomb plot. He knew all German intelligence operations, including, were there British double agents? British moles in German intelligence? Details of the double-cross system. He ran SS intelligence networks still operational in May 1945. He could reveal who was working for the British, who was working for the Soviets, who was playing both sides. He knew about Nazi gold laundered through Swiss banks. Were British businesses involved? British aristocrats profiting? Banking connections embarrassing to the UK? This information was extremely valuable to the British, as the Cold War was beginning. They needed intelligence on Soviet operations. Himmler could provide that. Why would he kill himself before even starting to negotiate? Before trading any information? He could expect months, maybe years of interrogation before trial. Time to make deals. It makes no sense. And then there's the Preutzmann precedent. May 21st, 45, 2 days before Himmler. SS Obergruppenführer Hans Adolf Preutzmann held in the same house. Same room. Searched thoroughly multiple times. Still managed to swallow poison. British explanation, he was clever. Now Himmler, Same house, same room, same searches, same result. Colonel Murphy in charge both times. Is this a pattern or catastrophic incompetence? The official version wants us to believe incompetence. That the British, despite having the most wanted Nazi in custody, despite 3 searches, despite explicit warnings about cyanide, somehow let him kill himself. But there's another interpretation. One that fits the evidence better. What if the British didn't let it happen? What if they made it happen? 80 years later, 4 main theories exist about what happened in that room. Let's examine each one. Theory 1. Official version. Suicide. The claim: Himmler concealed the cyanide capsule in his mouth through multiple searches. Bit down during Wells' examination. Voluntary suicide to avoid trial. Evidence supporting this: 1 cyanide capsule was definitely found in his clothing, proving he had access to poison. A second brass container was empty, proving a second capsule existed. Death was consistent with cyanide poisoning. Multiple witnesses saw the bite-down moment. Wells's fingers were crushed. Evidence against impossible to eat sandwiches and drink tea with a 35 by 9 mm capsule in your mouth. 3 searches over 4 hours failed to find it. Cooperative behavior all evening contradicts suicide intent. Many earlier, better opportunities ignored. Valuable intelligence to trade. Expected months of interrogation. Psychological profile doesn't fit impulsive suicide. Verdict: possible but highly problematic. Theory 2. Body double. The claim: the man who died wasn't Himmler. Real Himmler escaped. A double was sacrificed to create cover. Evidence supporting: identification wasn't rigorous, no fingerprints taken initially. The death mask shows facial asymmetry, not visible in life photos. Nose noted as, quote, slightly bent to right on the corpse, not documented in life. Teeth were later pulled out, preventing dental identification. Files classified for 100 years suggests a cover-up. But the evidence against this theory is overwhelming. All of Himmler's closest staff were captured with this supposed double. Werner Grothmann, his adjutant. Heinz Macker, his other adjutant. Joseph Kiermaier, his personal aide. Dr. Karl Gebhardt, his personal physician. SS Brigadeführer Otto Ohlendorf, commander of Einsatzgruppe D, responsible for 90,000 murders. Dr. Rudolf Brandt, his chief of staff. Why would these men, especially the war criminals, voluntarily accompany a double into British captivity? Ohlendorf and Gebhardt were later hanged for their crimes, is less than has shown. 5 is greater than they had no reason to protect a double. They could have escaped with the real Himmler. Karl Kaufmann, the former Gauleiter of Hamburg, recognized him at Kolkhausen. Kaufmann had met the real Himmler multiple times at official functions. He would know a double. The signature matched the specimen Major Rice brought. Himmler's mannerisms and speech patterns were reported as accurate. Verdict: highly unlikely. Loyal staff wouldn't sacrifice themselves for a double. Theory 3. Forced cyanide, political murder. This is where the evidence gets compelling. The claim, the British forcibly gave Himmler cyanide during Wells's, quote, examination. Staged it as suicide. To prevent embarrassing testimony at Nuremberg. Why would Britain do this? Secret negotiations between Britain and Germany in 1940–41. Himmler, as head of intelligence services, knew the details. If revealed at Nuremberg, Churchill would be politically destroyed. The British government humiliated. Allied unity damaged. Massive Soviet propaganda victory. Intelligence embarrassments. Himmler controlled the Abwehr after Canaris. He knew all German intelligence operations. This included British double agents working in German intelligence. The Cambridge Five spy ring: Philby, Burgess, Maclean, Blunt, Cairncross. Details of the double-cross system. SS intelligence networks still operational in May 1945. Himmler could reveal who was working for the British, who was working for the Soviets, who was playing both sides in the emerging Cold War. Swiss bank accounts. Nazi gold laundered through Switzerland. British businesses involved? British aristocrats profiting? Banking connections that would embarrass the UK government? Now, look at the evidence of cover-up. The teeth. Colonel Brown's detailed chart from the May 25th post-mortem shows every single tooth present in excellent condition. 8 months later, when Dr. Ian Morris examines the exhumed body, most of the teeth are gone. Someone pulled them between death and burial. Why? Because teeth are as unique as fingerprints. The Soviets arrived with Himmler's actual dental records captured from SS headquarters in Berlin. They could have proven the identity definitively. Or disproven it. The British made sure that comparison was impossible. The brain. Removed on May 25, 1945, by Dr. McCurdy Bond. Contemporary newspapers confirm this. The Daily News of Perth reported, quote, "The brain and part of his skeleton were removed." The Second Army Troops News Journal stated, quote, "British Army surgeons removed the brain and parts of skull." Time magazine confirmed, medical authorities removed the brain, took plaster casts of skull. Official purpose: to discover the source of his evil. Sent to London. Never seen again. 80 years of searching major brain banks in Britain and Europe. The Institute of Neurology in London. Professor John Corsellis's brain bank at Runwell Hospital, later sold to Synapse in Belgium. Professor Joseph Godwin Greenfield's collection. Cambridge Brain Bank. Every institution either says no record or we cannot confirm or deny due to anonymization policies. Why would the brain of one of history's most significant criminals simply vanish? Files classified until 2045. 100 years. Normal war crimes files were released decades ago. What's in the Himmler files that requires a full century of silence? Murphy's behavior. Conveniently absent during the actual death, supposedly using the lavatory. When Soviet investigators arrived demanding answers, Murphy claimed he was, quote, too hungover to meet them. for 72 hours straight. When American officers arrived with Himmler's brother Gebhard and mistress Hedwig Potthast to identify the body, Murphy had already buried it in an unmarked grave. Before sunrise. Soviet suspicions. Colonel Vasily Gorbushin arrived from Berlin carrying Himmler's actual dental records from SS headquarters. He stated flatly, "This is not Himmler." He demanded exhumation. Denied. He demanded to examine the body with the dental records. Denied. He demanded a copy of the British dental chart. Denied. Why obstruct your own allies? The hasty burial. May 26th, early morning. Body wrapped in camouflage material, bound with wire, no coffin. Driven for hours, searching Lüneburg Heath for an isolated spot. Thrown into a shallow grave. Disguised with branches and leaves. Location marked on a map, then later, quote, lost. The BBC broadcast. May 23rd, 8 p.m. BBC Radio announces Himmler's death to the world. Before any medical examination. Before any formal identification. Before post-mortem. Why announce before confirming? To control the narrative? Make it a fait accompli before other allies could demand access. Now consider the method if this was murder. During the quote, examination, Wells approaches Himmler. Orders him to open his mouth. Himmler complies. Wells and Austin force a cyanide capsule into his mouth. Hold his jaw shut. The capsule breaks. Cyanide releases. Wells immediately shouts the pre-planned statement, "My God, it's in his mouth. He's done it on me." Other witnesses rush in and hear this. The version is locked in. Evidence against this theory. It requires a conspiracy involving at minimum Wells, Austin, and Murphy. It's risky. What if Himmler spits the capsule out? Why not use a simpler method, like shooting while, quote, trying to escape or hanging in a cell staged as suicide? Wells was a civilian doctor, not a military intelligence operative. How do you force a capsule into an uncooperative mouth? Himmler would fight, struggle. But consider the counter-arguments. Murphy chose Wells specifically. An older doctor, not a regular military intelligence physician, easier to pressure or threaten. Remember Murphy's words, "You will do as you are told." After the war, Wells couldn't speak out, bound by the Official Secrets Act. Austin was a company sergeant major. CSMs follow orders. It's their job. Murphy's direct subordinate. A career soldier doesn't question a colonel. Himmler had been searched 3 times, interrogated for hours, stressed, weakened, disoriented. He was naked, vulnerable, in a freezing cold room. 2 fit men versus one 44-year-old, in poor health with chronic stomach problems. Physical force was possible. Verdict: possible. The evidence of systematic cover-up is compelling. But direct proof is lacking. Theory 4. Beaten to death. The claim, CSM Austin beat Himmler to death under orders. The suicide story was concocted afterward. The cyanide story added to explain the death. Evidence supporting. The post-mortem noted abrasions on Himmler's heels. Nose described as, quote, slightly bent to right, not documented in life photos. Some facial asymmetry noted on the corpse, not visible in photographs of the living Himmler. Austin was alone in the room with Himmler during the death. A CSM is an enforcer type who would follow orders. Evidence against. Dr. Bond's post-mortem report shows no injuries consistent with being beaten to death. No broken bones. No massive contusions. No internal bleeding beyond what cyanide poisoning would cause. Bond was a competent, thorough pathologist. He would have noticed beating injuries. Beating someone to death is messy, hard to control, difficult to stage afterward. Blood spatter issues. Wrong bruising patterns. If you're going to murder a prisoner, why make it so complicated? Why not just shoot him while, quote, trying to escape, or stage a hanging in his cell? Beating to death, then faking cyanide poisoning is unnecessarily complex. Verdict: unlikely. The physical evidence doesn't support it. The method is too complicated. So, what actually happened? After 80 years, we still don't know for certain. But we can identify what doesn't make sense in the official story. The capsule couldn't have been in his mouth while he ate and drank. His cooperative behavior all evening contradicts immediate suicide planning. He had many better opportunities if suicide was his goal. The intelligence value he possessed made him worth more alive than dead to the British, unless that intelligence was too dangerous. The systematic destruction of evidence points to something being hidden. Pulled teeth. Missing brain. Hasty burial. Obstruction of Soviet and American identification efforts. Files classified for a century. The Prutzmann precedent establishes a pattern. 2 senior SS officers. Same house. Same room. Same searches. Same result. Same officer in charge. Either catastrophic incompetence or deliberate action. The truth probably lies somewhere between official suicide and outright murder. Perhaps Wells did find a capsule during the mouth examination. Perhaps Himmler did bite down. But perhaps that capsule was placed there moments before, not hidden for 5 hours. Or perhaps we're meant to keep arguing about theories, while the real evidence, the brain, the dental records, the classified files, remains hidden until everyone involved is safely dead. In 22 years, those files are scheduled to open. Will they tell us the truth? Or will we discover that the most important documents were, quote, accidentally destroyed or, quote, lost during institutional transfers decades ago? History has a way of burying its inconvenient truths. Heinrich Himmler's death might be one of them. But one thing is certain: the official story doesn't hold up to scrutiny. Too many contradictions. Too much destroyed evidence. Too many unanswered questions. What happened in that room at 31 Uelzener Strasse on May 23, 1945? We may never know. But we know enough to be suspicious. And sometimes, suspicion is where truth begins. May 24th, morning. Himmler's corpse has been lying on the floor of 31A for 12 hours. Naked except for an army blanket. Rigor mortis setting in. Guards posted outside. 9:30 a.m. The parade of viewers begins. First, a group of army chaplains. They want to see Himmler's body. Tourist attraction treatment. The guards, bored and irreverent, lift the blanket. Show the corpse's genitals. Revel commentary and laughter. Then, British female soldiers from the Auxiliary Territorial Service. Same treatment. More jokes. Completely inappropriate. This is the second most powerful Nazi, the architect of the Holocaust, being treated like a circus sideshow. The guards are entertaining themselves. No dignity, even for a dead enemy. But it also reflects something else, a complete lack of proper procedure. Meanwhile, higher up the command chain, nobody's laughing. The crisis is immediate. The Americans will be furious. They wanted to interrogate Himmler. The Soviets will be furious. They wanted their pound of flesh. The prize prisoner is dead in British custody before proper identification by other allies. This is an international incident. 1:30 p.m. Colonel Murphy calls a conference. Attendees: Murphy, Lieutenant Colonel Joe Hewitt, Lieutenant Colonel Stapleton, and 2 unidentified officers. Those 2 are almost certainly MI6, British intelligence. Purpose: agree on the official story. Control the narrative. Minimize damage. Dr. Wells is summoned to the conference. Murphy gives him explicit orders: do not discuss what occurred with anyone. The Official Secrets Act is invoked. Wells is silenced. No independent account will be allowed. The decision: bury the body quickly. Before more questions. Before other allies demand access. Get the corpse out of sight. Problem solved. 1:40 p.m. Murphy excuses himself from the meeting. Still, quote, too unwell to continue. His hangover, remarkably, is now entering its 24th hour. Convenient timing. Left in charge, Major Norman Whitaker and Company Sergeant Major Edwin Austin. The same Austin who was in the room when Himmler died. 2 p.m. The photography session. Sergeant Carl Sutton from the Army Photography Unit arrives. Sergeant McCandless and Ken Gordon from Pathé News bring film cameras. They're going to document the scene for newsreels and newspapers. But first, the room needs staging. Furniture is brought in. The bare, freezing room is made to look homely. Comfortable. A reasonable place for an interrogation. Not the prison-like space it actually was. The body is positioned on the floor for the cameras. Multiple angles. Footage for the newsreels. Photos for the papers. The deception is being built into the historical record. The official images will show a furnished, warm room. Reality was bare walls, freezing cold, windows open. 4 p.m. An American liaison officer arrives to view the corpse. Takes notes. Reports back to U.S. command. The Americans want answers. Why weren't they informed immediately? Why weren't they allowed to interrogate first? Why is he dead so soon after capture? 4 p.m. The Soviet delegation arrives. 3 Soviet liaison officers, led by Captain Kursenko. They demand to speak with Colonel Murphy. Murphy, unavailable. Still, quote, unwell. 24 hours since the death, and Murphy still won't face the Soviets. Major Whitaker shows them the corpse instead. The Soviets examine it carefully. Captain Kursenko's assessment: this is not Himmler. He refuses to accept the British identification. Returns to Flensburg headquarters. Sends an urgent cable to Berlin. Sends senior SMERSH officer immediately with proper identification materials. Colonel Vasily Gorbushin is dispatched. He's bringing something crucial: Heinrich Himmler's actual dental records, captured from SS headquarters in Berlin. These could definitively identify the body. Evening. Chester Wilmot, the famous Australian war correspondent, arrives with 3 other journalists. They view the corpse. Take notes. 8 p.m. BBC Radio broadcasts Wilmot's report worldwide. Heinrich Himmler is dead. This is before any medical examination has been completed. Before a post-mortem. Before the body has been properly identified by forensic experts. Why announce so quickly? To control the narrative before questions arise? To make it a fait accompli before other allies can demand proper procedures? Night of May 24th to 25th. Himmler's second night on the floor. During the night, 2 soldiers break into the death room. They prop up Himmler's corpse. Take unauthorized photographs. Souvenir hunting. Complete breakdown of security. The body is deteriorating. It needs to be dealt with. May 25th, 9:30 a.m. Brigadier Hugh Glynn Hughes, Senior Medical Officer for British Second Army, makes a phone call. He contacts Colonel William Brown of the Royal Army Dental Corps. Come take dental records for identification. Brown arrives with his assistant, Major George Atkins. They bring equipment, rubber, plaster of Paris, for making death masks and dental impressions. 11 a.m. The post-mortem begins. Captain McCurdy Bond, pathologist from the 74th British General Hospital in Lüneburg, conducts the examination. Present are Colonel Brown, Major Atkins, mortuary attendant Private White, and laboratory assistant Sergeant Glunn. The conditions aren't ideal. Performed on the floor. No autopsy table. Natural light only through the bay windows. Basic equipment. But Dr. Bond is thorough and competent. He documents Himmler's physical description. Height, 5 feet 8.5 inches. Hair, thin, brown, balding. Bald patch, 3 by 2¼ inches on the crown. Eyes, grey. Teeth, most present, excellent condition. Chest, hairy. Build, slightly overweight. Chin, weak. He notes abrasions on the heels. Nose slightly bent to the right, not documented in life photos. Some facial asymmetry, also not visible in photographs of the living Himmler. Colonel Brown examines the teeth. Creates a detailed hand-drawn chart. Shows every single tooth present. Excellent condition. Few fillings. Complete dentition. But here's the critical omission. What's not in the dental report, any mention of glass fragments in the mouth. No cuts or lacerations from a broken ampule. No chemical burns from cyanide. If Himmler bit down on a glass ampule, there would be fragments. There would be cuts. There would be tissue damage. A dentist would note these. The report mentions none of this. This omission suggests either incompetence or that the capsule story wasn't yet properly worked out when Brown did his examination. Or there was no glass because there was no bite down. Brown and Atkins create 2 latex death masks. One is sent to General Eisenhower's headquarters. The other Brown retains for himself, unauthorized. Murphy probably doesn't know. Decades later, Brown donates it to the Army Medical Services Museum. It becomes available for analysis. Comparing the mask to life photos, there is some facial asymmetry. The nose position is slightly different. Could be post-mortem changes. Or could suggest a different person. The debate continues. 11:45 a.m. The brain removal. Corporal Bill Ottery, one of the guards outside, is called into the room to assist. Dr. Bond performs the procedure. Cuts the top of the skull. Removes the brain. Ottery later recalls, "I looked away." The brain is placed in a container with preservative solution. Sealed. Labeled, presumably. Contemporary newspapers confirm this removal. The Daily News of Perth, Australia, May 26, 1945. Before the burial, doctors and detectives took fingerprints, examined the nails and teeth, and measured each limb. They also took the death mask and a cast of his ears. The brain and part of his skeleton were removed. The 2nd Army Troops News Journal, May 27th. British Army surgeons took casts of his features and removed the brain and parts of skull. Time magazine, June 4th, 1945. Medical authorities removed the brain, took plaster casts of skull. Official purpose, reported to the press, to discover the source of his evil. Scientific study of a Nazi leader's brain. Common practice in that era, when phrenology still had some influence. Dr. Bond leaves no records of where the brain was sent. Logical destination, London. To one of Britain's top neuropathology centres. The Institute of Neurology. The National Hospital for Neurology and Neurosurgery. Leading neuropathologists of the era, Professor John Corsellis, who maintained a brain bank at Runwell Hospital. Professor Joseph Godwin Greenfield. 80 years of searching. Corsellis's brain bank was maintained until the 1990s. When Runwell Hospital closed, the collection was sold to Synapse, a Belgian scientific initiative. Now housed at Duffel Psychiatric Hospital in Belgium. Search result: no record of Himmler. Greenfield's personal papers at University College London Library thoroughly searched. No references to Himmler whatsoever. Brigadier Glyn Hughes's papers at the Wellcome Institute in London, extensive collection. He was the officer who ordered the post-mortem. His papers should mention Himmler. They don't. Not a single reference. Strange omission for such a high-profile case. Deliberate? Cambridge Brain Bank. Query sent. Reply: post-mortem material held in our brain bank is anonymized for researcher inquiries and requests. Translation: if we have it, we won't tell you. If we don't have it, we won't tell you. Multiple UK brain banks queried. All respond either no record or cannot confirm or deny, citing the Human Tissue Act. Nobody will admit having it. The conclusion: the brain probably still exists. Too historically significant to destroy. But institutions won't admit possession. Negative publicity concerns. What do you do with a Nazi brain? Easier to deny than deal with the problem. Or it was destroyed decades ago and nobody kept proper records. Either way, gone. Early morning, May 26th. Himmler's third night on the floor is complete. The body must be buried immediately. Major Whitaker and Company Sergeant Major Austin prepare the corpse. Wrap it in camouflage material. Bind it with wire. No coffin. No ceremony. No dignity. The body is loaded onto an army truck. Driver: Sergeant Weston. Escort in back: Sergeant Ken Ottery. Major Whitaker follows in a jeep with Austin as passenger. They drive for hours, searching Lüneburg Heath for an isolated spot. No markers. No witnesses. A secret location. Finally, a site is chosen. Weston and Ottery dig a shallow grave. Just deep enough. No time for proper depth. The body is unceremoniously thrown in. Covered with dirt. Disguised with branches and leaves. Natural camouflage. Whitaker notes the coordinates on a map. The only record of the location. Top secret. They return to Lüneburg. Whitaker reports to Murphy. Body disposed of. Mission complete. From the Allied perspective, the problem is solved. Evidence buried. Can't be examined by Soviets or Americans. Questions curtailed. Story controlled. But the Soviets aren't satisfied. Afternoon, May 26th. Colonel Vasily Gorbushin arrives from Berlin. Senior Smersh officer. Brings Himmler's actual dental records captured from SS headquarters. Could definitively identify the body. He demands to see Colonel Murphy. Murphy, still unavailable. 3 days since the death, Murphy is still avoiding the Soviets. Convenient 72-hour hangover. Soviet demands: examine the body with their dental records. Exhume if already buried. Conduct their own post-mortem. Take fingerprints. Verify identity independently. British response: all requests denied. Body already buried. Location classified. Exhumation refused. The Soviet dental records are not examined against the corpse. They're even denied a copy of the British dental chart. Why obstruct your own allies? You're supposed to have the same goal: identify Nazi criminals. 3 p.m. 2 American officers arrive from the Berchtesgaden area. They bring an offer. We have Himmler's older brother, Gebhard. We have his mistress, Hedwig Potthast. Family members who can identify the body definitively. British response: too late, already buried. American reaction: a blazing row with Murphy. Finally, Murphy is forced to meet someone, face accountability. The Americans are furious. Why so rushed? Why no coordination? Why bury before proper identification? But the body stays buried. 6 months of silence. The world moves on. Himmler is dead and buried on Lüneburg Heath. Questions unanswered. Until early 1946. The War Office in London suddenly contacts key witnesses. Dr. Clement Wells. Major Norman Whitaker. Others involved in May 1945. The message: report to Germany. Board of Inquiry. Be prepared to testify. Doubt has crept in. About the identification. About the circumstances of death. About the hasty burial. Someone high up wants answers. Decision: exhume the body. Second examination. Settle the questions definitively. Dr. Ian Morris is appointed to conduct the examination. From Unit Number 2, War Crimes Commission. Experienced pathologist investigating Nazi atrocities in the British zone. Competent and independent. But Morris is handicapped from the start. He's not given Dr. Bond's original post-mortem report from May 25, 1945. He's not given Colonel Brown's detailed dental chart. He's not given fingerprints, if they were taken. He's not given the death masks. What he is given: some German X-rays of Himmler's teeth. Incomplete information. Why handicap the investigation? Major Whitaker relocates the grave using his map coordinates. The body is exhumed. Transported to British Military Hospital in Hanover. The examination team: Dr. Morris, 2 unidentified British civilians, Corporal D.W. Williams of the Royal Army Medical Corps. Morris reports the body is in, quote, reasonable condition. Skin slimy and swollen. Decomposition advanced after 8 months buried. But examinable. Morris examines the mouth. The shocking discovery: most of Himmler's teeth are missing. Comparison. Colonel Brown's chart from May 25, 1945, shows all teeth present in excellent condition. Morris's examination early 1946. Most teeth gone. Someone pulled them between death and burial. Why? Because teeth are primary identification. Unique as fingerprints. The Soviets had Himmler's actual dental records from Berlin. The British had Brown's chart. If the teeth were compared, they could prove identity beyond any doubt. Or they could prove it wasn't Himmler. Someone made sure that comparison was impossible. Morris's conclusion: cannot identify the body. Teeth missing, no dental comparison possible. Advanced decomposition. Incomplete information provided. No prior reports to compare against. Official result: cannot confirm identity. The identification remains, quote, contentious. If the British wanted definitive identification, why not provide Morris with complete information? Why not give him Brown's chart, Bond's report? Why handicap the investigation? Unless they didn't want definitive identification. Wanted an inconclusive result. Ambiguity serving some purpose. Corporal Williams receives his final task. After Morris's examination, the head is X-rayed. Those X-rays have never been released publicly. Then the body is taken to the crematorium. Hanover Military Hospital. Incinerated. Ashes scattered. All physical evidence destroyed. Body cremated. Teeth pulled and lost. Brain disappeared. Dental records. Soviets denied access. Death masks, one hidden in museum, one sent to Eisenhower. Photographs, controlled release. X-rays, never released. Nothing left to examine. The official story: Heinrich Himmler buried on Lüneburg Heath, exhumed 1946, cremated. But identity never definitively confirmed. Soviets never satisfied. Americans skeptical. Teeth deliberately removed. Evidence systematically destroyed. Files classified 100 years. What are they hiding? Hedwig Potthast, The Mistress. May 23, 1945. Hedwig Potthast is in hiding in Austria with her 2 children. A radio crackles to life. BBC announcement: Heinrich Himmler is dead in British custody. She hears the father of her children described as a suicide. The man who wrote to her on April 19th, quote, "God protect you, the children, and Germany is gone." Their last face-to-face meeting, mid-March 1945 at Hohenleichen Sanatorium in northern Germany. After that, daily phone calls until April 19th. Then silence. Hedwig met Himmler in the late 1930s when she was his secretary. Young, efficient, caught the Reichsführer's attention. By 1941, she was his mistress. His wife Margaretha discovered the affair. They separated but never divorced. February 1942. Hedwig gave birth to their son Helge. Himmler needed a proper home for his second family. In 1943, he went to Martin Bormann for a loan from Nazi Party funds. 80,000 Reichsmarks. Used to purchase Schneewinkel, a pretty alpine chalet near Königssee in Bavaria. Ironically, the house had once been the holiday home of Sigmund Freud. Albert Speer disparagingly called it, quote, Himmler's bomb-proof love nest. July 20th, 1944. The day Colonel Stauffenberg's bomb nearly killed Hitler at the Wolf's Lair. The same day Hedwig gave birth to their daughter, Nanette Dorothea, in Berchtesgaden Hospital. May 4th, 1945. American troops captured Berchtesgaden. They found Schneewinkel. Inside, Himmler's uniforms, photographs, medals, monogrammed items. His official Mercedes W150 770K limousine. The car now sits in a German museum. But Hedwig and the children were already gone, fled to Arnsen, Austria, as US forces approached. After hearing of Himmler's death, Hedwig went deeper into hiding. Moved to Rosenheim, Bavaria. Lived with Eleanor Pohl, wife of SS Obergruppenführer Oswald Pohl. Pohl ran the SS Economic and Administrative Office, chief administrator of the concentration camp system. He'd be apprehended in May 1946, disguised as a farm worker. Hanged in 1951. July 1945. The US Army identified and arrested Hedwig. Her interrogator, Major Paul Kubala, the same officer who'd later confiscate Hermann Goering's Grand Cross of the Iron Cross. Kubala questioned her about Himmler's plans. She knew nothing of intelligence value. She was released. Hedwig lived quietly in Teisnendorf. Stayed close to Himmler's older brother Gebhard's family. Also maintained contact with SS Obergruppenführer Karl Wolff, Himmler's chief of personal staff. Eventually married and changed her surname. Her son Helge suffered poor health throughout his life, lived with his mother. Her daughter Nanette Dorothea became a medical doctor, now retired. Hedwig Potthast died September 1994 in Bonn-Baden. Age 82. She never spoke publicly about Himmler. The house at Schneewinkel today divided into holiday rental apartments. Tourists sleep where the Reichsführer SS once lived with his mistress and children. Most have no idea. No historical marker. Margaretha Himmler and Gudrun, the wife and daughter. Margaretha and their daughter Gudrun fled Germany before it fell. April 20th, 1945, US forces approaching their house in Gmund. They escaped to northern Italy, still under German occupation. Gudrun was 15 years old. Born 1929. Her father's favourite. He called her Puppy, Dolly. She idealised him completely. When Gmund fell, Americans searched the house. Stripped it for intelligence. Souvenir hunters took everything else. Margaretha and Gudrun were captured in Bolzano, Italy, at war's end. Held in a succession of internment camps, Italy, France, Germany. carefully questioned. Margarethe knew little of her estranged husband's political life. Released November 1946 after the Nuremberg trials, the denazification process began. 1948. Margarethe classified Category 4 sympathizer. Relatively lenient. But Bavaria challenged this. She was reclassified Category 2, activist, militant, profiteer. Harsher penalty. Sentenced to 30 days punitive labour. Lost pension rights. Lost the right to vote. She spent her final years in a modest Munich apartment with Gudrun. Died August 1967. Age 73. Gudrun's life became a mission. She never accepted her father's guilt. Became active in Stille Hilfe, Silent Help, an organisation providing legal and financial support to former SS members and their families. She defended her father's memory constantly. Became a controversial figure, an unapologetic Nazi sympathizer. She believed the British murdered him. Not suicide. Murder. Gudrun Himmler died May 2018. Age 88. A daughter who never knew the truth or refused to accept it. Who spent her life defending the indefensible? The British officers. Colonel Michael Murphy, Chief of Intelligence, British Second Army. The man in charge when Himmler died. Career progression after the war, unknown. Files, classified. Later life, no public information. Date of death, unknown. The convenient 72-hour hangover that kept him from meeting Soviet investigators. The hasty burial he ordered before sunrise. What did he know? Captain Clement Jepson Wells, the doctor. Age 55 in 1945. Country doctor in civilian life. The man who examined Himmler's mouth. Who shouted, quote, "My God, it's in his mouth. He's done it on me." Is less than Hasson. 5# is greater than. Returned to civilian practice after the war. Bound by the Official Secrets Act. Never spoke publicly about that night. Date of death, unknown. Company Sergeant Major Edwin Austin. The only other person in the room when Himmler died. Followed orders. Later life, unknown. Fate, unknown. The Silent Witness. Major Norman Whitaker, intelligence officer. Rushed into the room after the death. Organised the burial on Lüneburg Heath. Relocated the body for the 1946 exhumation. Knew the burial location. Later life, unknown. Fate, unknown. Dr. McCurdy Bond, the pathologist. Performed the post-mortem May 25, 1945. Removed Himmler's brain. Left no records of where he sent it. Continued his pathology career. Fate, unknown. Colonel William Brown, Royal Army Dental Corps. Created the detailed dental chart showing all teeth present. Made 2 death masks when authorized to make only 1. donated the unauthorized mask to the Army Medical Services Museum decades later, providing evidence that contradicts the official story. Later life, continued dental career. Fate, unknown. Brigadier Hugh Glynn Hughes, Senior Medical Officer, 2nd Army. Ordered the post-mortem examination. His papers at the Wellcome Institute, no mention of Himmler whatsoever. Strange omission for such a high-profile case. What didn't he write down? The captured Germans. Werner Grothmann, Himmler's adjutant, captured with him. Testified about the Harz Mountains plan. Revealed the gold connection. Survived captivity, released, lived quietly. His testimony preserved. Died 2003. Age 91. Heinz Macher, the other adjutant. Fate unknown. Joseph Kiermaier, personal aide who led the advance party to the bridge. Fate unknown. Dr. Karl Gebhardt, Himmler's personal physician. Convicted at the doctor's trial for medical experiments at Ravensbrück concentration camp. Hanged June 2nd, 1948, Landsberg prison. Age 50. SS Brigadeführer Otto Ohlendorf. Commander of Einsatz Group D. Responsible for murdering 90,000 Jews in Ukraine. One of the worst war criminals, travelling with Himmler. Why did he voluntarily go into British captivity instead of escaping? Convicted at the Einsatzgruppen trial, Nuremberg. Hanged June 7th, 1951, Landsberg prison. Age 44. Dr. Rudolf Brandt, Chief of Staff. Convicted at doctor's trial for medical experiments. Hanged June 2nd, 1948, Landsberg prison, same day as Gebhardt. Age 43. The intermediaries. Count Folke Bernadotte, Swedish Red Cross leader. Himmler's peace negotiation intermediary. Continued humanitarian work after the war. 1948. Appointed UN mediator in Palestine. September 17th, 1948. Assassinated in Jerusalem by Lehi, a Zionist extremist group. Age 53. Irony. Survived the war, killed in the peace. Felix Kirsten, the Baltic German massage therapist. Himmler's trusted envoy. Continued his medical practice quietly. Died 1960. Age 62. Never fully explained his role. SS Brigadeführer Walter Schellenberg, Himmler's spymaster. Organized the Stockholm meetings with Bernadotte. Captured by Allies. Testified at Nuremberg. Convicted 6 years. Released 1951 due to ill health. Died 1952, Turin, Italy. Age 42. Wrote memoirs of disputed accuracy. The locations: 31 Eulsener Strasse, Lüneburg. The House for Special Purposes, where Himmler died. Demolished decades ago. No marker. No plaque. Site redeveloped. History erased. Locals may not even know. The grave on Lüneburg Heath. Dug May 26, 1945. Exhumed early 1946. Location then, quote, lost. Some say deliberately. Never rediscovered. Or never disclosed. The house in Gmund. Himmler's family home with Margarethe. Now a company headquarters. Private property. No public access. No historical marker. The house at Schneewinkel, Schönau. Himmler's love nest with Hedwig. Now holiday rental apartments. Tourists sleep where the SS Reichsführer lived. Most don't know. No marker. These are the people and places left behind. The witnesses, the accomplices, the victims, the locations. Some hanged for their crimes. Some lived quietly into old age. Some took their secrets to the grave. Some locations demolished, erased, forgotten. But the questions remain. The evidence, though systematically destroyed, left traces. The contradictions in the official story never resolved. And somewhere, perhaps in a Belgian hospital vault, perhaps in a London institution, perhaps destroyed in the 1960s, perhaps mislabeled in storage, Himmler's brain may still exist. With it, the truth about his death. The secrets Britain buried. The answer to 80 years of questions. Or maybe the truth died with Colonel Murphy, Dr. Wells, Company Sergeant Major Austin. Maybe it's locked in files that will open in 22 years. Maybe those files were destroyed decades ago. But one thing is certain, the people who knew what really happened are gone. And they took Britain's darkest secret with them. After 80 years, here's what we know for certain. Heinrich Himmler was captured by British forces on May 22, 1945, at Bremervörde. He voluntarily revealed his identity the next evening at 7 p.m. He was searched 3 times over 4 hours. A man died at 31, a Uelzener Strasse, at approximately 11:52 p.m. May 23rd. Death was attributed to cyanide poisoning. The body was buried secretly on May 26 on Lüneburg Heath. These facts are not in dispute. But then the evidence starts disappearing. Between death and burial, someone pulled most of Himmler's teeth. Colonel Brown's chart from May 25th shows every tooth present excellent condition. Dr. Morris's examination 8 months later, most teeth gone. The brain was removed on May 25th. Contemporary newspapers confirm it. Sent to London. Never seen again. 80 years of searching, no institution will admit having it. The body was exhumed in 1946. Dr. Morris was given incomplete information, no prior reports, handicapped from the start. His conclusion, cannot confirm identity. Then the body was cremated. All physical evidence destroyed. Files classified until 2045. 100 years. Normal war crimes files released decades ago. What's in Himmler's files? that needs a full century of silence. These facts are also not in dispute. Now, here's what doesn't make sense. The official story claims Himmler had a 35 by 9 mm glass cyanide capsule in his mouth for at least 5 hours, during which time he ate thick sandwiches and drank hot tea at Kolkhausen, talked normally, gave driving directions in the car. 3 searches failed to find it. This is physically impossible. His behavior all evening contradicts suicide planning. He voluntarily revealed his identity when he could have stayed hidden. He discussed future interrogations, intelligence cooperation, his value to the British. He was helpful, engaged, forward-looking. Not once did he show desperation or despair. Not the behavior of a man planning immediate suicide. And he had so many better opportunities if that was his goal. At the farmhouse, with his loyal adjutants. At Loser's Mill, sleeping on grain sacks. In the truck. At Kolkhausen, before revealing his identity. In the car to Lüneburg. Why wait until the 3rd search? Naked, vulnerable, strangers watching, no control, no dignity. It doesn't fit. Then there's what Himmler knew. Alleged British-German peace negotiations in 1940–41. If revealed, Churchill destroyed, government humiliated, Allied unity damaged. SS intelligence networks still operational, revealing who worked for whom in the emerging Cold War. Nazi gold laundered through Swiss banks with possible British connections. The Cambridge 5 spy ring. Details of the double-cross system. This information was dangerous. Worth more suppressed than revealed. And then there's the pattern. May 21st, 1945, says, Obergruppenführer Preutzmann dies in the same room. Same house. Searched thoroughly multiple times. Still swallows poison. British explanation. He was clever. May 23rd, Himmler dies in the same room. Same searches. Same result. Same officer in charge, Colonel Michael Murphy. Catastrophic incompetence or deliberate pattern. The systematic cover-up suggests the latter. Teeth pulled to prevent dental identification. Brain removed and disappeared. Body cremated. Soviets denied access despite bringing Himmler's actual dental records from Berlin. Americans denied access despite offering family members for identification. Murphy conveniently absent during the death. Then conveniently too hungover to meet Soviet investigators for 72 hours. The body buried in secret before sunrise. Location later, quote, lost. BBC announces the death at 8 p.m. May 23rd. Before any medical examination. Before formal identification. Before post-mortem. Why announce before confirming? Every piece of evidence systematically destroyed or hidden. Files locked for a century. By 2045, everyone involved will be dead. This isn't how you handle a straightforward suicide. This is how you hide something. So what really happened in that room? Did Himmler commit suicide as claimed? Possible, but the evidence doesn't support it. Was he murdered to protect British secrets? Is less than hash shown? Zero hash is greater than. The systematic cover-up suggests this. But direct proof is lacking. We may never know for certain. In 22 years, when the files are scheduled to open, we'll probably discover the most important documents were destroyed long ago. But here's what we can say. The official story is full of holes. The evidence was systematically destroyed. The witnesses are all dead. The secrets are buried for another 2 decades. And somewhere, maybe in a Belgian vault, maybe in a London institution, maybe destroyed in the 1960s, Himmler's brain holds answers we'll never get. Because if Britain murdered their highest value Nazi prisoner to hide embarrassing secrets, what does that say about every other suicide in custody? Every convenient death? Every sealed file? Sound familiar? Jeffrey Epstein died in custody. Cameras malfunctioned. Guards fell asleep. Autopsy raised questions. And we're told, trust the official story. Himmler's death was the blueprint. The lesson: when governments bury evidence for 100 years, when witnesses conveniently die or stay silent, when every piece of proof is destroyed, you're not looking at incompetence. You're looking at a cover-up. Britain's darkest secret isn't that Heinrich Himmler died. It's what they did to make sure we'd never know how. And why? The evidence exists. Scattered across museums, archives, institutional memory. Someone knows something. Someone has seen documents. Someone knows where the brain went. Someone saw the teeth being pulled. Someone knows why Murphy avoided the Soviets for 72 hours. The truth is still buried. But it doesn't have to stay that way. If you have information about what really happened at 31 Owelsener Strasse on May 23, 1945, history is waiting. Because some secrets are too important to stay hidden forever. Even Britain's darkest secret.